Hi, so this is The Warriors, which is the last of the 3 fairy tales book knowledge I have for today. In the high hall of the High King, a contest of words was called. The warriors from the courts of the world would come to outboast each other with talk of their deeds. It had been 3 days of horse talk, and finally they stood, the last 2 warriors at the head of the high hall of the High King. The High King's speaker called for them to start. The first warrior was from the High King's own court, dressed in a gleaming mail shirt woven from the rings of past victories. He held out a hand to the warrior from elsewhere and said that surely, as they were both there, they must both be bright with words, with weaving stories, telling tales, composing their phrases to enchant. The king's warrior told of leading an army to the front of the battle and giving a speech so touching to the heart that the other side of the field laid down their swords and no blood was spilled that day. The warrior from elsewhere was dressed in much simpler clothes, a blood-black tunic and a sea-blue cloak clutched with a single ring of gold at the throat. He gripped the king's warrior's hand and said that he was impressed by the deed of the warrior's speech. He himself had not been to battles. He was not blessed with the intelligence of body that the other warrior had. He spoke of being clumsy with the sword and uneven in the dance. But he argued that he could weave words as sweet without reliance on grand deeds must mean that his tongue was even more golden. He said that what he knew of speech he took from his great knowledge of song and of rhythm. He could hear the smallest change in volume, pitch and tone and control every subtlety within his own mouth. And he told of how he had, as a diplomat, brought a room of warring ambassadors to silence and tears with a carefully crafted song. The king's warrior gripped his hand tighter and said that he was impressed with the quality of his craft. However, he said it would be a mistake on the other warrior's part to say that he was all function and thought. For as well as the power of his words, he also had the brain for numbers that many thought only a reserve of the scholar. He could tell you how many people were in this room at a glance and calculate the piece of the entire kingdom as a thought. There was not a person left in the king's court who would play cards with him, for he remembered the numbers so well he could calculate the hands of the other players with perfect aim. The warrior from elsewhere admitted that he had perhaps made a mistake in his first speech by praising the king's warrior so highly. Certainly, he said, the other warrior was deserving of praise, but it was overly modest of him not to use it as a chance to praise his own abilities. For he knew the other warrior's greatness not due to hearing the warrior's boasts, but due to his own keen eye for knowing a person. He could read in each ring of the warrior's armour where it had come from, and read in the hands, the face, what sort of breakfast he took, what his greatest fear was, where he was most comfortable. During his court, no one played cards with him either. He could read the quality of a person's hand from their face without having to go through several hands of cards first. The king's warrior said that perhaps they should play cards after they were done speaking to see who would end up the winner. With his head for numbers, he could play without seeing his cards. But though he was impressed with the reading of others, he said, he had his own talent and a perfect knowledge of himself. When doubts nagged him, he could see where they came from. When he felt angry or dark, he could see those feelings as the shadows they were rather than his own thoughts. He could work his own mind so well that he did not fall prey to distraction, temptation, or procrastination as others did. And this was why he'd been able to push himself to the many great deeds he had to boast of. The warrior from elsewhere said that perhaps he had again understated his talents, for he could read not just other people but the world itself. He could tell a bird by its cry and a plant by its colour. He could tell what ground was precarious before we stood on it and feel the approach of a storm by the buzzing of the wind. He said that he had once sensed a flood at the king's court during a party and had everyone taken outside, and then after the flood had subsided, had led the party back in to clean the damage and drink on. He knew not just humans, but nature and how it worked upon them, what was safe for them and what was dangerous for them. As the king's warrior readied his retort, the High King's speaker called time on their talk, and asked that they both step down while the High King made a decision on which had come out best. They bowed low to each other until their foreheads touched and walked down into the cheering meat hall with hands gripped as equals. They found themselves a set of cards and sat down to their own contest.